This is Duncan Charman, one of the top all-round big fish course anglers in the UK. And for this session, he's taking us touch ledgering on his beloved River Loddon near Basingstoke in Hampshire with chub on his mind.
The Loddon is slowly, has made a name for itself as a big fish venue, barbel-wise, and the best I've taken was in 2004, I think it was, which was a 16 £10 specimen, which held the river record for a few years. It was just a freak fish. I was trying to up my personal best from £10.15 at the time, and absolutely smashed it with a 16-10. I have caught a few 16s, 15s and 16s over the last few years, but not one to beat that fish. But I do know, there are rumours of massive fish that haven't been reported, but then that's fishing. There's rumours of big fish everywhere, but I know the Loddon has done 19 £, barbel, and it's not just one fish. It's, there's a few fish of that size in different stretches. And the chub potential as well. As I said earlier, my best through here is 6'9", and this part of the Loddon is only a few miles from the source of the River Loddon. So it's in its infancy here really, but any angler that comes and chub fishes is on a regular basis will, without doubt, manage to catch a £6 chub eventually. Further downstream there's noted areas where the Loddon has produced 7s, even £8 chub. So it is a big fish river now for chub and barbel. Okay, so here I am at my first swim, and I'm actually going to prime this, but in a way that you probably wouldn't guess. It's a little bit sneaky. It's what we call bank craft and shock tactics. And any bred angler that will know that if once somebody's been in a swim, the chances are it's going to be 10 times harder. So I'm not actually going to fish this swim, but what I'm going to do is just drop a few lumps of bread in, which makes it look as if I've been fishing here. And if another bred angler comes along, he won't go in here, which will allow me to come back later and actually fish one of my actual areas that I know I've got a very good chance of a fish. So it's a little bit naughty. Learned from a few barbel anglers on the Loddon a few years back, and any chub angler will actually look at that and think, I haven't got a chance in there, and leave it alone, hopefully. Okay, so one problem that an angler will have when they come to a small river like this is the amount of features. Every swim contains features. What to look for and where will chub be? That is the question. Quite often an angler with lesser experience for the first time can actually go into a swim and ruin the chances before he even makes a cast. This swim is a swim that you could do just that. Here we've got fast water coming in over shallows, over gravel, and then it's dropping down into quite a nice pool here. Now, I know that there's going to be chub sitting down here. How I would approach this is to actually fish from up here, keep my rod tip low, make a cast downstream, try and feather that actual feed as it hits the water, keep it nice and quiet. Other anglers would actually go down swim through the hedge and be fishing in a much more comfortable position, but by the time you get down there, the chub will have actually known you were there, because you have to go through a load of bushes. You're going to rip your jacket, you're going to get your line caught, you're going to make some noise. So a typical swim where you need to actually look at the river, look where you're going to actually fish from. Don't fish directly on the fish. They will see you well before you actually get into position. Classic swim. 2 places to fish. I'd fish here, but not down there. Okay, so this is the first swim I'm going to fish. I've primed a couple of swims, as you saw earlier, in the hope that that'd be left alone. It's worth having everything organised when you actually get into your swim, landing net on your left. Bait box open, little sounds like zips, fumbling about can actually make all the disturbance, so you've got to keep nice and low. Be as stealthy as you can. This swim is a classic looking chub swim again. We've got this big tree here that's actually holding back the flow. It creates a nice deep slack on the inside bank, and all the water's pushed, the flow's pushed on the far bank. So what I'm going to do is actually cast a big lump of bread flake over right onto the crease. The crease is where the fast and the slack meet. Hopefully the chub that are sitting here in this slack inside will actually see the bread flake, shoot out and actually grab this big lump of bread flake. And when I say a big lump, don't be scared of putting a big lump. This is a size 6 hook. Chub have got big mouths, so got a little cage feeder. I'm just going to fill up with a bit of liquidised bread. And here we go, let's make the first cast. I'm going to touch ledger and feel for bites. So again, just keep nice and low, nice and quiet, and hopefully it won't be long before we get a bite. Sometimes it happens very quickly, sometimes you've got to wait a few minutes. So, looking at this swim, my thoughts are that the chub are sitting down in this slack water, maybe a bit further downstream. Just had a little knock then, I don't know if that was me just moving or a bite. I didn't see anything on the rod tip, just on my felt it through my finger. Now if I was using a quiver tip rod, I probably would have struck then, because the bites would have been very much exaggerated. But that was just a combination of feel and touch that brought me to that actual fish. So we have chub down here, but he'll be back. As you can see, I've only made one cast. A lot of people will think, oh, is my bread gone there? Is it still on? I can assure you that big lump of bread is still on that hook. If I make another cast, my confidence will be seeping. It's one cast and leave it and wait for the bite. So I'm quite surprised I haven't had anything else tap away there. So must admit, last time I fished this swim I had a couple of chances which I missed, and I left it alone for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and came back in this swim on the way back to the car, and I almost had my rod ripped out of my hand thinking it was a barbel, but it was actually a 4-pound chub. So sometimes if you're getting lots of knocks and the fish are a little bit clever, wised up, it's best to maybe just leave the swim and come back on your way home. This swim gives you 2 chances, there's 2 options. Obviously we've got this overhang and this weed raft out here and the branches going into the river. The best sort of area is downstream here. There's no point going downstream into that spot first, hooking a fish, because you'll actually ruin this swim out on the opposite bank under this weed raft where there are a few fish sometimes. When you hook one chub from a shell, they normally back off downstream and then slowly move up. Here we are, that's a chub there, just pulling it, just giving it a little bit of line, so there's a fish down there. That was all through my finger, I felt that. Just follow the rod tip I did and off it went. So here I am, first fish. A couple of little taps, and then as the rod just went 6 inches round, I just followed the actual rod tip downstream. It's a chub, so it's quite nice to actually take a fish from above the snag, because in this swim I've got, oh look at that, the hook's just in. We might be able to get another fish below, so we have our first fish of the day. That hook is just in. So there we are. That hook is just in that lip, so I had quite a few little taps before that fish took, so they might be a little bit kind of finicky today. Every day is different, so as you can see, barbless hook, now it comes. Lovely looking fish. For Loddon standards, this is quite a small chub actually. It's probably the smallest I've had up here for a number of weeks. Last week I came up and had 4 fish, including a fish to 5 fourths, a couple of 4s. This fish is probably 2.5 pound, which is a baby for up here. We've got a chance. I've had fish to 6-9 up here. My personal best came from just upstream here, you see, so there is a chance of catching a few very good fish. I think we should slide her back. Okay, well I'm going to stay in the same swim because I'm confident we'll get another fish here or another chance. As you saw, I hooked that chub. It wasn't a big chub. Kept her, bullied her a little bit out of the snag so she came upstream, and hopefully that didn't disturb the actual swim further down. Try and make a cast down through the gap here. I'm going to have to stand up for this. It's not the easiest cast. I'll try and keep that low and down there. Now that normally will produce a fish, and it'll produce a fish quite quick. That chub earlier had loads and loads of little taps, which is very strange up here. That first swim you saw, we had a few taps and it never produced, and I was kind of a little bit concerned whether they were in a bit of a strange mood today. Other days you'll come up, you'll have 4 bites and it'll be 4 really kind of like unmissable, confident bites, but that last chub played about with that quite a lot before it actually took it. So after catching that last chub and just getting a few taps here, that the fish are a little bit further downstream, and the odd one just keeps coming up and just having a little look at the bread. That's it. Pull and just let the rod go round with the bite, and every time that little bit of extra line just gives them some confidence to just take it a bit more. This fish is going under the snag, so I'm going to have to dip the rod very quickly. She's obviously seen that snag. I'm going to bring her upstream and hopefully away from danger. A better fish. Still not a monster, and look at that hook again, it's just in the lip. There we go. There's your barbless hook, just in the mouth. So for some reason they're not actually taking the bait as confidently as they can do, but every day's different. That's fishing. And as you can see, a size 6 hook is absolutely lost within that mouth, and that's only a small chub. That's probably, I don't know, it's over 3 pound, but it's fish number 2 swims fished. Cracking fish. Okay, so let's run through the tackle that's required for roving a river and chub fishing. As you can see, I keep everything nice and basic and simplified. My rod, let's start with the rod. It's a Corum 11-foot precision float rod. This might sound a bit strange, but I love this rod. It's very light, you can hold it all day, it doesn't make your arm ache. It's short enough to actually poke into small different tight swims. If you ever have the need that you need to swap over to the float and put a chubber float on and trot, then it's the perfect rod. The actual reel is a Preston PXR. It's loaded with £6 mainline. £6 mainline will deal with most chub and barbel that are hooked. It's essential you have got a reel with a very good clutch, and this is a nice smooth clutch on this reel. So moving on to the other bits of tackle, obviously a landing net. It's good to have a long handle landing net, just in case, you know, you have to stretch out, catch a barbel, land a barbel. A little pouch to actually carry my liquidised bread, and obviously some sliced hovis there. That's great because you can actually leave your ruck bag at the back of the swim and then just creep into position with minimal tackle again. All my essential tackle is kept in this ruck bag. Things like flask, camera, scales in case I catch a fish that needs weighing, terminal tackle. It also doubles up as a chair if you want to sit. If you know it's cold, you can put a mat attached to the bottom, and I can sit on that. And also very important is obviously a waterproof jacket. So they're the basic, keep everything nice and simple. No chair, no umbrella. I need to move about. I don't want to be tied down to carting lots of tackle up and down the river. Moving on to the actual business end, again, this is simple. It's a tiny 10 gram Drennan feeder, cage feeder. It's simply running up and down the line. That is buffeted by what we call is a Corum quick change bead. Now, these have actually revolutionised my fishing. They are superb pieces of kit. They pull apart. Not only do they act as a bead, but they also have a little hook there that actually allows you to take your hook link off and put another one on. So if you want to put a shorter hook link on, it's done in seconds. The bead then comes back down and just snaps into place. These are very, very strong. I've landed barbel to over 16 pound using these when I've had 4 ounce lids banging against them. So they are superb little gadgets, I would say. And then a short kind of about 10 inches, 8 inches of £6. It's mono, it's the same as my actual reel line, and a very sharp size 6 Corum S3, barbless obviously to keep in with club rules. It is a setup, it's a rig that I have total confidence in. Very rarely do I have to change this feeder. Obviously you might need a bigger feeder if it's slightly faster flow. You might want to shorten the hook link, but in general, in the winter when the water level's low and clear, it's the perfect rig. One very important factor is try and keep your feeder as small as possible. You want a feeder or a lead that only just holds bottom. If you put on a big feeder, it's going to cause resistance and a chub's going to actually suss this out. So make sure that the feeder is the smallest possible one you can find or you can get away with. Okay, so whilst we're here, we might as well show you how to put the bread flake on. There is a technique to putting bread flake on, so let me just show you how I actually do that. Chub have very, very big mouths, so don't be scared of putting a big hook on. As I said, this is a size 6. And pull out a big lump of flake. Chub have very big mouths, so do not be afraid to put a big lump of flake on. Fold it over and then place the hook in the centre of that folded bread. Then whilst that's all there, just squeeze onto the eye of that hook and you will feel on your fingers the metal of that eye. Squeeze it too tight, it will break. Squeeze it too soft and it will come off. As you can see, the hook is buried well within the bread flake. A great big lump of flake that will increase in size once it goes in the water. And obviously back to the feeder, tiny little feeder, and all you need to do is push a little bit of actually liquidised bread into it. Bread is a very, very visual bait. but it's only visual when it's in really clear water. Now, I always carry some flavouring in my my bag, because sometimes you actually get to the river and you may think it's going to be clear and it's actually coloured. There, for some reason, there's some colour in the water. So to get the best from your bread then, what I would do is I actually add some blue cheese flavouring. Now, adding flavours to bait is a difficult one to gauge. This really is pungent, it really does smell, and knowing that fish can smell much better than us humans, you really want to keep this down to a minimum. Now, pouring this onto that bread flake will probably put every fish off in the river. So all I do is I just put my finger into there, that's enough. I don't pour it into my bread or anything, and then I just rub it on my fingers. Now that has made my hands smell of blue cheese. Every time I actually go now throughout the day to actually put a piece of bread flake on, will actually flavour that bait, will give it a little bit of an extra scent, a little bit of a taste, and it has actually worked in the past for barbel. I'm not saying bread is far from the best bait for barbel, but it's great for chub. But if there's a barbel around in your swim and it gets a whiff of that blue cheese, it will be onto that bit of bread flake and it will catch you the odd bonus fish, especially when the water is actually coloured. Okay, this is the liquidised bread. It's not actually liquidised, it's been put through a food processor. As you can see, it's got big lumps, small lumps, bits of crust. I leave the crusts on, all different size particles there, fluffy bits. And that's basically what is introduced into my feeder for the day's fishing. It's got the crust on it, so sometimes, you know, chub can get really cagey and you can actually fool them by putting a bit of crust on. So never just, you know, always have your crust available. So for the, you know, the cost of £1, you've got a whole day's fishing and it will last you all day. Okay, here we are. I'm just in a swim that can be quite a frustrating swim, I've got to be honest. It always, I shouldn't say always, but it nearly always produces a few bites, but quite often it's very difficult to hook these chub in here. I don't know if they're just a little bit cleverer than other parts of the river, but as you can see just downstream we've got loads of kind of like vegetation that's sitting in the near bank. There's obviously the bank is undercut there, I would think, from the flow, and there's always a few fish down here, but they're not the easiest ones to tempt. They can be frustrating at the best of times. And there we go, straight away. That took literally a few seconds, that did. And that feels like a good fish. That is going for the far bank, that's better. That was pretty instant. And that's a good chub. Let's keep her out of there. Oh, it's pretty hit and hold here. That's a big chub, that is. Oh. Get this fish on the move, which I have. That's a bit touch and go. This is where the long landing net comes in. And in she goes. That's a good fish. And there we have it. That's a much better chub, that is. Well, what can I say? It's been a tricky day. It's not been an easy one. The chub have been in a kind of strange mood. We've been having lots of little taps and pulls. Managed to catch a couple of smaller chub earlier on. I wasn't thinking this fish was going to come along, but it was a swim that's rewarded me in the past with some big fish. It's been pretty tricky, this swim. You get lots of little taps. If anything, this was the swim that I thought would be the tricky one, but there was no holding back on that bite. The tip was round, the arm was going, the rod was going, and that was a powerful fight on the far bank. She knew where the snags were. That's one thing you've got to remember. Chub know where the snags are. But I can tell you now, I'm going to be going home a very, very happy angler, and believe me, I'm going to be back for a lot more.